There are what are called errors of clinical judgment. It was a difficult case. In retrospect, I can see I was wrong, but I thought carefully about it. And then one's not considered to have been careless or negligent. But I'm more interested in talking about carelessness, malpractice, negligence, where we tend to think if a doctor makes a careless mistake, he's a bad doctor. We make a moral judgment. But as I hope to discuss, the problem is it is normal and natural for us as human beings to make mistakes. As an example of a mistake of the first type, which perhaps wasn't a mistake, as a young woman who was admitted to my accident and emergency department, unconscious, with fixed dilated pupils, so clearly very ill. She was put on a ventilator. And my colleague who was responsible for the case, it wasn't my case, wasn't sure what the scan showed, although the patient was clearly very, very poorly and was unlikely to do well. And he said, well, we don't know what the scan shows, and therefore we don't have a definite diagnosis, therefore we have to operate. And although he said also, because she's in a deep coma and with fixed dilated pupils, she's very unlikely to make a good recovery. So they did operate, and did the operation called a decompressive craniectomy, an operation I have considerable reservations about for different reasons anyway. And you can see from the brain scan that the front part of the skull has been removed, so the swollen brain can swell out. Now, looking at the scan later, I knew what the diagnosis was because I'd seen this case before, a similar case. It's not that I'm a better doctor, I'm just a bit more experienced. And I was pretty sure the scan showed a diffuse infiltrating tumor called gliomatosis cerebri. And this indeed proved to be the case, and she survived. She did not die, which she would have done very quickly if she'd not had the operation, but she had suffered one of the terrible complications of raised intracranial pressure, which is the posterior cerebral arteries both infarcted. And as a result, she was now cortically blind, as well as with a fatal diagnosis of gliomatosis. So for all I know, she may have died by now. But in a sense, the point of the story is this. I met the family subsequently, though she wasn't my patient. And they said, no, we're really very grateful for everything you're trying to do. So my perspective, I would have almost certainly, if I'd been involved at the beginning, would have said it's best to let her die now rather than operate. My perspective was, in a sense, quite different from the patient's family. And it is this huge problem we face, particularly in brain surgery, as to what is the value of a life? What is the value of quality of life?